But the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them, and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice in thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no fellow is come up against us.
It says, For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel. Why? Because technically, the Lord, could have done away with us a long time ago, as a nation, because of our rebelliousness. But because of the promise and oath that he made with Abraham, he didn't do that. And when you go deeper into it, this is the Lord's plan anyway. We had to go off because the Lord programmed us to go off, to come back, to be able to be reestablished as righteous, because we had to learn the left-hand side, the wicked side, in order for us to be able to be perfect judges, knowing both good and evil, as the angels know. As they spoke, Yahushua and the angels spoke in the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter, that once Adam ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they said that man has become as one of us, knowing good and evil. And that is the true definition of perfect knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It's knowing both sides, the good and the evil, but only doing the good. All right, so this is why we had to go through this and experience what we've experienced all these thousands of years from the time that Adam fell until now. And now we're about to, enter into the kingdom once this place is gone, in order to be changed. Our bodies being changed, our minds being changed, us given a fleshly heart instead of the stony hearts, laws, statutes, and commandments put into our inward parts, so that we can be perfected. We can really be perfect.
Isaiah 14. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them, and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashim Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today, going into the history, behind the Feast of Dedication. We're in the midst of it. I believe this is day 5, maybe, 3 more days left, Saturday, Sunday, believing the ending Monday, sundown, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, we're in the midst, of the Feast of Dedication. I found a pretty good documentary, that sums up the events in the book of Maccabees, a lot of events that we're familiar with, as we read, as we've been reading those books over the years. And it pretty much sums everything up. It's very informative, summary, of the events, leading, to, the Feast of Dedication. All right, which we're in the time now, as we have to understand that we're in the time where we need a victory. And the Feast of Dedication, is a high holy day. All right, centered around a victory over the enemy. Okay, and right now, we need a victory over the same enemy, which is Esau Edom. At that time it was the Greeks. Okay, and this time, all right, they're known as the Americans. All right, NATO, EU. Okay, this beast system, the bankers. Okay, but it's the same people. All right, so we're in the time as the Lord, has opened up, his mercy through his son Yahushua, allowing us, favor, endowing, his men with the Holy Spirit to teach his word, and as we get into these accounts, that's why it's good to get into our history, as a people. Okay, which I started with this precept here. All right, Romans 15:4 said, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope." And we have a rich history, man. Us, finding out who we are isn't about, playing dress up. Okay. Being cute on social media. Nah, man, we have a rich culture, a rich history, and it's full of faith boosters that's needed for the times we're coming into now. Okay. That's why we're not here, like the elder apostles been getting into, man. We're not here to go back and forth. All right. We're not here to sit down. Okay, and be on the panel and hug it out, with the devil. Like, nah, man, hey, we're here to build a congregation up for the times to come. Okay, and when you go through our history, you see, that our forefathers, all right, our foremothers, they will be in straits, and the Lord will intervene. He will come through. Okay, so as we go through these things that are written, these records, that's why the Bible is such a valuable book. Because this is our records, man. Okay, we can go into prophecy, we can go into accounts, we can go into wisdom of how to live, in our practical day-to-day life. Okay, so this is a very valuable book, man. So it's good for us to go and visit, the history, and see how the Lord, would always intervene on our behalf. Okay, and when we need it the most. So, let's get a couple of precepts and we'll get straight to the video. Let's go here. All right. And this was, we go into the priest, everybody wants to be chief priest and high priest and, priest that and this and that. All right. But when you go into what the priest would do, all right, before the military of Israel would go to war, the priest will hype them up. All right, now you go to Deuteronomy 21, as you go into laws of warfare. It says, when thou goest out to battle against thy enemies, okay, this is Deuteronomy 21, then reading through verse 4. It says, when thou goest out to battle against thy enemies and seest horses and chariots and people more than thou, be not afraid of them, for the Lord thy power is with thee, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Okay, so with us, it never mattered about the numbers. It never mattered about the military might or who we was facing. You know, the thing that mattered was us being in good standings with our power, man. And this grace period was for us to come into good standings with our power. Okay, and when we're in favor, when we have favor with our power, okay, the odds favor us, man. No matter what it looks like carnally on the surface, when we're in good standings with our power, the odds favor us, man. Okay, and the priests will remind us of that, man. Okay, not the madness that we see today. All right, well, Jake is all into gimmicks, you know, grifting the congregation, you know, joining, you know, all of these different podcasts, being celebrities and nigga university. Nah, man. Okay, the priest will instill faith and trust. All right before warfare, and we're coming into a time of major warfare, man. Okay, as the dragon's getting ready to be wroth, you know, he's wroth with the woman, and he's getting ready to come down in wrath, man. Okay, verse 20, verse 2, Deuteronomy 20:2, and it says, and it shall be when you are come nigh to battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people, and shall say unto them, Hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint or your mind. Fear not and do not tremble. Neither be ye terrified because of them. For the Lord your power is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. Okay? And this is the mindset we have to go into these times with. You know, as our forefathers will go into warfare with this mindset. Okay? Knowing that, look, if we're in good standings with our power, he's going to be for us, man. He's going to fight and aid, all right, for us in these battles, man. Okay, so the same thing today is we get ready to go on the straight gate. We're going to need a higher power fighting, all right, on our behalf, man. We're going to need protection from a higher power aid. A standard is going to have to be lifted, man. And ultimately, those chariots, man. Okay, so let's go from there. I got one more account, you know. All right, I got one more account I want to get to. This is the book of Second Maccabees, chapter 15 and verse 7. All right, read 7 through 10. Okay. Well, yep. Yeah, I started at 6. All right. This is Second Maccabees 15 and 6. Now, so Nicanor, you know, which was a general, okay, of the armies of the Greeks. Okay. And as they was, you know, waging a campaign against, all right, Judas, you know, and you know, the southern kingdom, you know, the Jews of the time, okay, they had rebelled, you know, against the Greek government, okay, which caused, you know, wars to break out. All right, so this is a battle in which, you know, this Edomite, all right, this Greek, okay, Edomite, full of pride, you know, and he's campaigning against Judas, okay, and then what you call the Maccabean revolt, okay. So let's pick up at verse 6, and we'll read. It says, so Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him. All right, so his mind, he's going to just burn, all right, Judea to the ground and set up a monument, all right, you know, that commemorates what he did, you know, and that's why you have today the Ark of Titus, you know, commemoration of them destroying the temple. Okay, those Edomites, you know, during the time of Rome destroying the temple. Okay, it says, but Maccabeus had ever sure confidence that the Lord would help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty, and so comforting them out of the law and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles they won afore, he made them more cheerful. Okay, so he went into what the accounts. That's why I says and comfort them out of the law, which you just read in Deuteronomy. okay, and the prophets. All right, so you know they was reading about Daniel, okay, the three Hebrew boys, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, okay, so forth and so on. It says, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they won afore, he made them more cheerful, man. You know, and the Bible is just full of accounts, you know, of the Lord intervening on behalf, all right, of those that trusted in him, our forefathers, you know, and our foremothers that trusted in him. He would intervene. Okay. Verse 10, and when he had stirred up their minds, okay, and we're in a time now where as a teacher, all right, as a leader, we should be stirring up the minds of the church, okay, to expect the victory, man. Okay, against all odds. All right. He says he gave them their charge, showing them there withal the falsehood of the heathen, and all right, and the breach, okay, of others. Okay. So, you know, as this devil, you know, now he's huffing and puffing, you know, and speaking about, you know, what he wants to do. Nah, man, we speak against that, man. We got a victory against everything that this devil is setting up, man. All right. When Esau finished, you know, being all over the place and this enchantment and this, and, you know, he got this going on, this agenda and this plan. And, you know, once he get through all that, man, and he go forth with his move, man. All right. This devil is going to lose. Okay. In a major way. All right. So I want to get this. I want to play this. Fair use. You know, I'm not making any money. All right. Off content. This is just for educational purposes only, you know. So Lord will let me play it. All right. But I'll put the link also as well, you know. But I'm like I said, it's a good summary of the book of Maccabees, you know, all the accounts that we're familiar with. You know, he pretty much sums it up, you know, leading to that point. You know, it's in good chronological order, you know, because when you read the book of Maccabees, the second book of Maccabees, the first, I want to say 5 chapters, maybe 6 chapters happen before first Maccabees, the first chapter, you know. So second Maccabees starts earlier, okay, chronologically than first Maccabees, you know, but he sums it up well, okay, and it leads into, all right, the Maccabean revolt, okay, through Mattathias, leading up to the Feast of Dedication. All right. So let's let it play, you know, Lord will, you know, you brothers. All right, and you sisters are edified. Mm-mm.
The ancient land of Judea lay on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, home to the Jewish people. From the time of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the lawgiver Moses, and the kingdoms of Saul, David, and Solomon, the Jews had lived side by side with many of the great powers of antiquity. Tales told of their flight from enslavement in Egypt. They suffered the onslaught of the Assyrian Empire, a destruction and diaspora at the hands of the Babylonians, and an eventual restoration to their homeland with the aid of the Persian king Cyrus the Great, who ended the Babylonian captivity and helped rebuild the Holy Temple of Jerusalem. After Alexander the Great had carved out an enormous new empire, remade from the domains of the Persians, he died with no clear successor, leaving his empire to be carved into pieces by his generals warring against each other. One of these new kingdoms was founded by the general Seleucus, and so was named the Seleucid Kingdom after his memory. And it was under the sway of the Seleucid kings of Syria that the land of Judea would ultimately fall. The Jews remained a distinct ethnic community within this kingdom, retaining their unique laws and customs. But soon a conflict stirred to life within this ancient community, as some Jews sought to embrace new ways of life rooted in Greek culture, and others, reacting against, held fast to the traditions of their forefathers. Civil
So, and it's good to understand this history, to understand the New Testament. All right, as you had, Jake, that as the scriptures say, they liken the way of the heathen. Jake began to fashion themselves after the heathen. It was Jake that loved Hellenization. Okay, they took hold to the Greek culture. Then you had another reaction to what Jake, revolted against it. So you had a heavy schism amongst the circumcision at this time. All right, and that's why there was so much tension, during the time of Yahushua and leading into the time of the apostles. When the gospel started being preached, to those of the uncircumcision, because there was some heavy history, that went on between the circumcision during the time of the Greeks. Okay, that's why Apostle Paul writes those letters saying, "What? There is neither Jew nor Greek." Okay, because this schism, this falling out amongst those that accepted Hellenism and those that rejected it, it was thick tension. Which that's a lesson for another time. But it's good to know that history. Eliashua Wamba, he does those lessons. Going into what history you should know. And to really understand and grasp. Okay, the understanding of why there was so much tension. During the New Testament between the circumcision and the uncircumcision. Well, this history starts here. Just to put that out there. All right.
strife was brewing, which would soon grow into a conflagration when the Seleucid king himself turned a hungry eye upon the tumult in Judea. A story would ensue that saw the clash between old and new, between Jewish and Greek, between the Jews and a powerful monarchy. And the Jewish people would remember a signal event in their history, a remembrance we now know as Hanukkah. In the year 175 BCE, to the north of Judea in Syria, the Seleucid throne passed to Antiochus IV, surnamed Epiphanes. And when this happened, a new high priest was appointed to lead the Jewish community, one ruthlessly ambitious and sympathetic to the new ruler and the ways of Greek culture. This high priest, Jason, had paid well for the king's favor in his bid for the priesthood, and back in Jerusalem he erected a grand gymnasium in the Greek style, which the Jewish people took as a clear sign of his allegiance to their overlords and their pagan culture. Controversy followed the high priest Jason, and soon he found himself ousted in favor of his brother Menelaus, who was just as ambitious as Jason had been and won the priesthood by paying Antiochus Epiphanes an even bigger sum than his brother had. And after Jason had fled Jerusalem and regrouped, the stage was set for a civil war. He raised an army and marched against his own nation, took Jerusalem by force, forced his brother Menelaus to hide in the upper citadel of the city, and mercilessly put down anyone who had supported his claim. Eventually, Jason and his followers were repelled, and he fled in disgrace into exile once more. But this chaos proved only the beginning.
So you had two sellouts, that pretty much, went to war. Okay, these niggas went to war to be a sellout, man. Jason and Menelaus. All right, it was Jason. All right, he was the first, one to sell out. Okay, the high priesthood, that office, and he made it political. Okay, and then Menelaus came and undercut him, and then eventually, they went to war. Okay, about who was going to be the lapdog. Okay, for Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, the demon. All right, that we read about in the book of Maccabees. Okay, but this is how bad the leadership had gotten. Okay, for Jake during these times, man. All right, now remember, all this is happening before. All right, Mattathias, okay, would revolt, and start that Maccabean and the revolt. All right, that we read about. Okay, with Jake tripping, you see.
Of the turmoil the people of Judea would feel. Before long, word reached the court of King Antiochus in Syria, and what he heard led him to regard the city of Jerusalem as a state in full rebellion. The royal army, led by Antiochus, took up arms to restore order and assert the power of the Seleucid throne over the Jews, and descended upon Jerusalem ferociously. 4,000 were slaughtered when the king's army entered the city, with many more thrown into the chains of slavery. The corrupt high priest Menelaus, always subservient to the king, collaborated with Antiochus and allowed him access to the holiest site of the Jewish people, the temple of their one God. Tales tell of the desecration of the temple at Antiochus's hands, not just the looting of countless treasures, but an even greater abomination in the eyes of Jewish law, the bloody sacrifice of a sow, an unclean animal, on the temple's sacred altar. With Jerusalem again, as Antiochus saw it, restored to order under his heel, his army returned to Syria, and Menelaus returned to his duties as high priest of the city. Righteous anger swelled in the hearts of Jerusalem's people against the corruption and sacrilege that threatened their way of life, and they stood by the traditions of their ancestors. But even darker days would soon fall upon them, when Antiochus sent another army, with his trusted general Apollonius at the head, to inflict more violence on the Jews. Parts of the city were burned, and the walls were torn down amid more massacres and enslavement within the city. The temple was left empty of worshippers, and those Jews who had rejected the encroachments of Greek culture were forced to conform to the ways of the Seleucid state and bow to foreign gods. To their horror, the temple of Yahweh, the God of the Jews, soon became home to a statue of Zeus. Those who resisted became martyrs for their faith, and among these no story is more famous than the one told of a mother and her 7 sons who were brought before Antiochus for their disobedience of his mandates. The whole family stayed true to the worship of their God in the face of execution, as each of the 7 sons was killed before their mother's eyes, before she herself followed them in death. But darkness was slowly giving way to dawn, and new leaders were rising among the Jews to save their nation. The noble family of the Hasmoneans was among the most distinguished in Judea. In these days it was headed by a man named Mattathias, who had 5 sons: Johanan, Simon, Eleazar, Jonathan, and the one who would become most famous of them all, Judas Maccabeus. From his estate in the town of Modi'in, Mattathias grieved over the oppression of Judea and the desecration of the temple at Jerusalem. The king's emissaries paid him special attention as a leading citizen, urging him to the worship of foreign gods as a well-respected example to his people, inviting him to a pagan altar they had set up in Modi'in. Mattathias not only flatly refused, but furiously drew a sword and slew both another Jew who had agreed to worship at the altar and the royal ambassador himself, where he stood. He tore down the altar and announced his rebellion from that moment, calling all who remained loyal to their nation's laws and ancient covenant to his banner. Under the leadership of Mattathias and his 5 sons, a militant resistance against the forces of the Seleucid throne rose up and took cover in the mountains to hide and make plans. When time had passed and their strength was greater, Mattathias and his followers left their mountain strongholds and went down into the cities of Judea, leading raids against their enemies and tearing down the altars of the gods they regarded as false idols. But Mattathias was already a man in his elder years and felt his last energy giving way amid the rigors of campaigning. Knowing his time was near, he gathered his 5 sons and prepared to pass his leadership of the revolt into their hands. He reminded them of the faithful heroes of old and solemnly entrusted them with defending their people's covenant with their God, even if it meant sacrificing their lives. His son Judas was named his successor, and he gave to each of the other brothers a special duty supporting their cause. And with his blessings given, Mattathias breathed his last. Judas Maccabeus stepped into the lead and proved himself capable of carrying on his father's legacy, and his brothers worked tirelessly at his side in their sacred war. With a force not even 6,000 strong, the army of the Maccabees, as it came to be called, triumphed against the much greater forces of Antiochus and the veteran commanders who led them, first against the governor Apollonius, who had assaulted Jerusalem in the king's name years before. With Apollonius dead, Judas would wield his enemy's sword as a trophy of victory and a symbol of his vengeance. His victories made the name of Judas renowned through all the neighboring lands, and more armies were sent against him, only to be broken and driven in flight before his holy banners. As the forces of Antiochus fell further into disarray, Judas set his eyes on the greatest prize of all, the recovery and restoration of Jerusalem itself, whose people had been scattered and its temple left polluted and desolate. In the year 164, with ecstatic joy, the victorious army of the Maccabees entered and was welcomed into Jerusalem, hailed as saviors from the tyranny of Antiochus's regime. Immediately, Judas, his brothers, and his officers went up to the desecrated temple, which they found empty of worship, profaned by the pagan decorations of the occupiers, and overgrown with weeds from long neglect. On seeing the disgraceful state of their people's holiest site, they tore their clothes and cast ashes on their heads, overwhelmed with grief. But Judas soon turned his sorrow into strength. On that day, the 25th of the month Kislev in the Jewish calendar, the temple's restoration began. He chose faithful priests to cleanse the polluted sanctuary, pull down the altar desecrated by the king's minions, and build another in its place. He also appointed warriors to fight against the Syrian garrison in the area, which still held a fortress erected by Apollonius to keep eyes on the temple. New holy vessels were made for the sanctuary. The lamps again were lit, and sacrifices were offered to the one God. And with exultant celebration, the army of the Maccabees gave thanks for their victory to the Lord of hosts. Once the temple was cleansed and its court was loud with worship once again, Judas commanded high walls and towers to be raised around it to defend against any who would seek its desecration in times to come. News of the Maccabean revolt and the return of the temple to Jewish hands reached Antiochus.
So that's the history, behind the Feast of Dedication. Now it's about 4 minutes left, in this video. Like I said, and it just goes into, eventually Judas, would die in battle. His brothers, would pick up the mantle, and continue to wage war. And they will eventually, gain their independence, as a state, where you have the Hasmonean dynasty, all right, until the time, of the Roman Republic, will intervene, through Pompey, so the last 4 or 5 minutes of this, it goes into that, I say it's informative, it's worth the watch, and I'll upload this whole documentary on the GMS Historical Breakdowns channel, so we'll just have it archived, and I don't know if I put the link up for the video or not. Let me see. We're just gonna get a few precepts, Well, I thought that was interesting, and it was well put together, the way it was the way that it was broken down. He went into that their history, in their chronological order, I say, because we're familiar with all those stories, the 7 Hebrew boys, 7 Hebrew brothers, all right, and their mother, and Mattathias, Jake, slew pig on the altar, and Mattathias, was fed up, let him have it, him and the Greek ambassador, and that was pretty much the declaration of war, against the Greek government of the time, so yeah, that's the link, in case you just want to watch the last few minutes. And it goes all the way into the Roman Empire, which leads into what? The New Testament, but that's all the history leading up to the New Testament. That's vital to know, to really understand the New Testament. So, yeah, so we understand that we, are the temple now. We are the temple that's being cleansed, and how we're being cleansed with the word, so just as Judas, and the congregation of the time, they had to remove those actual idols, okay, from the temple. They had to remove, certain altars and things from the temple. Well, as us being the temple, we had to remove certain idols from our mind. All right. One, the main idol was who? Jesus Christ. Okay. The idols, of this society, whatever we was into, street culture, whatever, Tupac, all these, whatever, just throwing names out there. But these things were idols in our mind that had to be removed, okay, through the renewing of our mind, and we've been able to rededicate ourselves, okay, to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, this word is sanctifying. That's why you get Ephesians 5:26. It says that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. So we're in the temple that's being cleansed and rededicated to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay, just as they had to rededicate the physical temple from the pollution, okay, of the heathen. All right, we had to be cleansed by this word and rededicated, to our power, man. I believe that's in is it 1 Corinthians 3? And yeah, matter of fact, let me share it real quick. All right, so this is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. It says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth in you?" And before the Spirit, can dwell, it has to be a cleansing. And the more we cleanse, the more free range the Spirit of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai has within us, man. That's why the more we separate, from this world, this way of thinking, all right, the more free range the Spirit has to dwell within us and use us, man. Because you go back to what they did, they made the temple, they purified the temple so it can be of use again. And now we're those vessels, all right, we're the temple, all right, that's being cleansed to be of use again, okay, to the will of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, it says, "If any man defile the temple of the Most High, him shall the Most High destroy, for the temple of the Most High is holy, which temple ye are," man. And that's why we're not to cleave, all right, to being no damn crip, okay? Women still cleaving to being, with the feminist ideology, man. Those things have to be cleansed out. Okay, we shouldn't be defiled by the names of Christ. You know, that's a defilement. No, man, those things have to be purged and cleansed. Okay, and filled with right things, man. Okay, and it says, let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seeming to be wise in this world, because all thing we learned in this world was idolatry, man. Okay, it was rooted in idolatry. Anything that we learned in the world, when you know, dig and delve into it, okay, Thug, Diva, you know, those two deities that pretty much dominated the mind, you know, of our people. Okay, it's rooted in Satanism, man. Feminism, Satanism, all this rooted in Satanism, man. Okay, the black boule, you know, all this, you know, black excellence and black entrepreneur, that's rooted in Satanism when you really delve into it, man. Okay, that's why you get so high, you got to go through them doors of being a pure Satanist, man. You know, so um let's go from there. I just got a few I posted, you know what I'm saying? I won't make this too long. So let's get these few that I had posted. And you see, you know, that we was forced. And this is why the Apostle Paul wrote this in 1 Corinthians 12:2. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. You know, and Jake was forced militarily to worship idols. Okay, through military enforcement, Jake was enforced, okay, carried away to these dumb idols. So this is why the Apostle Paul was writing these things, you know, to the descendants, okay, of that forced Hellenization, man. All right, either you was gonna be forced into it, or hey, because pretty much, hey, Jake had no choice but to fight, man. You know, our forefathers, starting with Mattathias, they had no choice but to fight, man. You know, because under Antiochus, man, of that Seleucid Empire, you know, he was just a pure demon, man. You know, and that's why he's spoken about when you read Daniel the 8th chapter, Daniel the 11th chapter, man, because he played a major part, all right, in our people, you know, being turned out, man, you know, under the way of the Greeks. Okay, but we know now, all right, about what our forefathers did, you know, that hey, the Lord, you know, we stand for righteousness, man. The Lord gonna stand for us, man. Sirach 4:28. Strive for the truth unto death, man. And these are circumstances we in, man. This is why this is a serious thing. Okay? That's why we don't have time for them dumbass arguments, man. That Jake just want to argue about in circles, man. Okay? Nah, man, we in the time where hey, we got to strive for this thing unto death if necessary, man. All right. And we know, and the Lord shall fight for thee, man. We're finna see the Lord intervene on our behalf, man. You know, that's why there's some exciting times, man. You know, we're in the flesh, you know, get timid at certain things, man. You know, but as we read these accounts, man, look, the Lord, hey, he changing not. So if he intervene on behalf of our forefathers for them standing in faith and trusting him, man, he's gonna do the same thing for us, man. You know, if a brother can get that in Sirach 2:10, you know, we'll end it with that. It's Isaiah 35:3 says, strengthen ye the weak hands and confirm the feeble knees. Okay, because this is why we teach, man. This is one of the main reasons we teach, you know, is to exhort our people to stand in these times, man, to be sure-footed, man. Okay, this is why you listening to all these different camps and confused. This is the worst time to be confused, man, because the only thing to have a good foundation is to fully understand what you say you believe in, man. We fully have to understand what we say we believe in, man. Okay, verse 4 says, say to them that are of a fearful heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your power will come with vengeance, even the Most High with a recompense. He will come and save you, man. You know, and the Lord, all right, has a vendetta. All right, he has a bone to pick with these Edomites, man. Okay, because these devils have been unchecked, man, for a while, man. Okay, and there's a reckoning that these devils finna have without power. You know, and we just have to endure and understand, like, we're not gonna bend the knee. Our power is on the way. You know, And that's the mindset we have to go into these times with. Okay. Let's get this in Isaiah 31:5. It says, birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it, and passing over, he will preserve it, man. And this is Yahweh Shai and those chariots, man. That's going to be the ultimate deliverance, is those chariots, man. Okay. And leading up to the actual deliverance, man, it's going to be miracles, man. We're going to be preserved by miracles, man. You know, because you look at our forefathers, they was always outmatched. They was always, outnumbered. Okay. They was always in the position of an underdog, man. But the Lord would always come through and tilt the scale, man, in our favor. And we're going to see that like never before in these times, man. For the Lord tilt things in our favor, man, in the worst circumstances. Okay. All right. Isaiah 31:6 said, turn ye unto him from whom the children of Israel have deeply revolted, man. Which we've been in deep rebellion, all right, against our power. Okay. We've been in deep rebellion, and as the Lord, showed mercy and allow us to come into the truth, man, we've turned back. We repented. You see, but as a nation, we deeply revolted against our power, and that's why we've been so helpless, man. Okay, but as we turn back to our power, through obedience, through faith, we have the upper hand, and these devils know this, man. All right, this is why you saw a tiptoeing and how he moving, man. Because one thing I know about, all right, our uncle, man, if he got you, he don't waste no time. If he know he got you, he don't waste no time. All right, he coming. You see, but when everything ain't just kind of lining up like he want, he drag his feet a little bit, man. So let's end it here. This Sirach 2:10. This the brother Hopeful Lake 3, the brother Yaqua. Sirach 2:10 said, look at the generation of old and see, did any ever trust in the Lord and was confounded, or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken, or whom did he ever despise? Okay, they called upon him. They called upon him. You see, and this is why we go through these things. This is why we go over these accounts. You go through our history, because, like I say, it's rich, and it's full of faith boosters. We find ourselves in these same circumstances, man. Okay, so that was the point. Like I thought there would be a good watch. To Wazir Bashim Al Shai. They let the video play. Because I really wanted that to come out. The spirit wanted that to come out. So Lord will you brothers and you sisters edified. Till the next time I say shalom. Kwam Yashala. Baba soon. Shalom.